Introducing the remarkable archetype, the dangerous gentleman. With a demeanor that commands respect and a hint of potency, he embodies strength tempered by virtue. Though his capabilities could veer towards danger, he channels his power for noble causes, serving others and safeguarding those in need. Rooted in a profound love for both God and humanity, he navigates life with discipline and purpose. In his presence, one witnesses the harmonious blend of power and benevolence, a testament to the true essence of masculinity. Step into the world of the dangerous gentleman, where strength is wielded for righteousness, and discover a captivating embodiment of honor and valor. Greetings and welcome to Storytime with the Dangerous Gentleman. Yes, I am the Dangerous Gentleman. No, I did not give myself that nickname, but I certainly did earn it. If you spend much time around me, or even people that I know, you'll learn something about me, and that is that I walk. I am borderline obsessive compulsive about walking. And there's lots of reasons for that. Number one is it's really good exercise. Number two is it really gives me a lot of time to think. And that's actually part of where this podcast actually came from, because I like to walk and talk to myself. And so I was just like, hey, I should start to record what it is that I talk to myself about. So that's a lot of where these podcast ideas come from, is me walking and talking and thinking and praying and all that kind of stuff. It's how I process. And the way it all started for me is I've mentioned before that when I moved to Yakima, I didn't own a car. And I moved to Yakima in January of 2017. And for those of you around Yakima in January of 2017, you'll remember that there was a lot of snow on the ground. And when I moved here, again, like I've said before, I had everything I owned fit in 2 suitcases and a backpack, which meant I had 2 pairs of shoes. So 2 pairs of shoes and no car. And I had to walk a couple of miles. It was a couple miles to the office. And so I had to walk. And sometimes if I left at the right time, I could make it and meet the bus and be able to take the bus at least close to the office. Sometimes I didn't quite make it. Sometimes I was there too early. Sometimes I was there too late. Sometimes the bus didn't come. Regardless, I still would have to walk about, overall, if I had to walk the whole way, I think it was about 3.5, 4 miles. I would always wear 1 pair of shoes and take another pair of shoes with me, because by the time I got to the office, walking through the snow, tennis shoes, not boots. These weren't any kind of special snow boots. These were just a pair of old grubby tennis shoes. And I would get to the office and I would do, I guess, what you would call the Mr. Rogers, if you ever watched the old Mr. Rogers television show, where he walks in the front door, he sits down, he pops his 1 pair of shoes off and puts another pair of shoes on. So I would walk into the office, sit down, take 1 pair of shoes off, put them over the heater vent because they were soaking wet and my feet were cold by that point. And I would put on my other pair of shoes and I would wear them throughout the day. And then at the end of the day, I would do the reverse Mr. Rogers and I would take the shoes. Hopefully by then they were dry. I would pull them off the vent and take off my good pair of shoes and put on my grubby pair of tennis shoes to make the reverse trip home. And if it snowed, good luck. My feet were going to be soaking wet and cold. But that was just the way it was. Like I said, I didn't have a car. And I just got in the habit of walking. I got in the habit of walking a lot of places. I eventually did get a car about 6 weeks later. I still have that car now. But I just got in the habit of walking. And interesting thing is within a couple weeks of me moving here, I've only lived in the town for a couple of weeks. And someone that I had met at church happened to see me and was like, he pulled over, picked me up and took me to lunch. And that started a long-term friendship with that guy. We used to play cribbage every Friday and we used to go mushroom hunting and fishing and stuff like that. So because I happened to be walking and he happened to see me, he picked me up, we had lunch and it started a friendship. Now there's lots of stories about that, about walking for me. People I've run into, people I've met, situations I've come across. I think I've told the story about the time I was standing out on the street corner and over the course of 1 red light, while I was waiting for the crossing signal, I had 3 people drive by me and wave or honk their horn. And that's when I felt loved and I felt home. And if I hadn't been walking, I never would have experienced that. But because I was walking, that's why that happened. And it just has become a habit. And people ask me directions for places and they'll give them directions and I'll tell them that it's within walking distance. It's kind of funny because I'll say, yeah, it's within walking distance. And they look at me and they go, is that within your walking distance or the average person's walking distance? Because for me, a 3-mile walk is just kind of getting warmed up and I'll walk to the coffee shop. I'll walk miles to go to the coffee shop. As a matter of fact, when COVID hit, I lived in a studio apartment by myself. And so when they told us we weren't allowed to go outside except for necessary things, well, for me, coffee is a necessity. And it was my excuse. I would get up in the morning, usually a Sunday morning, I would get up and I would walk 2 miles down the street, so the closest to the Starbucks. And I would order a coffee on my phone as I walked up, or I would walk through the drive-through and order coffee. They would look at me weird, like I was kind of crazy. But I would walk 2 miles, get a cup of coffee, walk 2 miles back to my house. And that was my essentials. That was my getting out of the house. And so it was a 4-mile round trip to go get a cup of coffee. But it was how I got out of the house. One of the ways I kept my sanity during the lockdown was my necessary cup of coffee. Nowadays, I still walk. I don't know. I'm obsessed with walking. At least 3 or 4 times a week, I'll have a patient in the office and they're like, did I see you walking the other day? And they'll name the street. Oh, on Tuesday, were you walking on Lincoln? I was like, yep, that was probably me. What was I wearing? And they'd be like, yeah, well, you were wearing like a bright orange pair of pants and a blue shirt. And I was like, yep, that was me. And like I said, it happens at least 2 or 3 times a week. And very often when I'm at church, I'll get someone and say, hey, I saw you out walking. Or I'll be at the gym and it'll be like, I think I saw you out the other day. It no longer shocks me how many times I hear it. At first, it used to kind of be like, Now it's expected because, like I said, literally 3 or 4 times a week, someone comes to me and says, I think I saw you walking. I've gotten patients that people come into the office now because they saw me out walking. I have developed relationships with people while I was out walking. It was interesting. One story here. So I still walk the similar routes, but there was a period where I walked the same route every day. And I would walk and I would run into this. I would walk past this girl. I saw her once. I was like, Then a couple days later, at about the same spot, I saw her again. I was like, A couple days later, around the same spot, I saw her again. This time I gave like the little head nod, like, hey, at least acknowledge our existence. Acknowledge that we recognize each other. We've seen each other like 3 times over the course of the last couple of weeks. And then eventually it was like a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. Now, I'm not going to tell you that I eventually ended up dating this girl or marrying this girl, but we kind of got to the point where we would stop and we'd have a conversation. Like it started with us walking by, acknowledging each other's presence. And then it was like a wave. And then it was a stop and a full blown conversation. So I found out that the reason that she did that is that she worked downtown Yakima. When I would walk towards downtown Yakima, I would pass her and she was coming from work and she was going out to an NA meeting. And then I started to see her around at NA meetings and stuff like that. And I was like, that's the girl that I always run into. So it's kind of cool how you kind of build those relationships, the coincidences, but not coincidences. So, and now even my family, I go home and they're like, well, Drew's going out walking again. Cause I get up when I go to visit my family. When I go to visit, my mom has this little dog. His name's Gunner. He's a Cairn Terrier and he is a little wild thing, but he knows. And my mom isn't real mobile, so she doesn't really get to take him out and take on walks as much as he probably should. He's a farm dog. He runs around outside all the time, but he loves to go exploring out in the woods, but he's a little cautious because he likes to have someone to go with him. So every single time I show up, it started when he was just a little thing, and I would show up and I would go for a walk, and Gunner would come with me. And then the next morning I got up and I went on a walk again. And he went with me, and he was so excited, because I would get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and go for like a 2-hour hike in the woods and then get back before anyone even else was up. And so he loved going out on those walks with me. And now every single time I show up at my mom's house, it's like he just looks at me and he goes, "Are we going to go? Are we going to go?" And we always go. And he's a little impatient because I usually get up in the morning and I got to put my shoes on, put my socks on, go to the bathroom, do all that stuff. And meanwhile, he's just sitting there by the door waiting for me. Rain, snow, sleet, hail, whatever the weather is outside, I'm going to go for a walk. And whatever the weather is, he's going to go with me. He knows that there's a difference between when I show up to visit and when anyone else shows up to visit. He looks forward to me coming. And I love it because he goes out there and he barks at the deer and he chases all the animals away. Part of this too, it's kind of funny. I've actually come up with a new term. I call it urban hiking. Maybe I'm not coming up with that. Maybe I heard it somewhere, but I call it urban hiking because I don't go for hikes out in the woods. I go for hikes around town. And I've been up and down the craziest little nooks and crannies of Yakima. I've seen things that scared me a little bit here and there, things that made me laugh, things that made me think, but I've seen a lot of things. I've been down some streets that no one else even goes down, hardly. And I've been there at odd times of the day. Sometimes it's early in the morning, sometimes it's late at night, but been urban hiking. I'm going to try to make it a thing. I'm going to call it urban hiking. Yeah, I go for hikes out in the woods too on occasion, but most of the time I have 45 minutes to an hour at my lunch break and I just go for a walk and I pop in a podcast and I listen to something and I think about something and I get some exercise and some steps in. And it's been a big part of why I've been able to stay in better shape than I've ever been in. I also tend to wear out my shoes faster and my pants. My clothing guy, the guy I get my clothes from, he doesn't mind it because I walk the seams out of my pants. And so then I got to go get new pants, and he doesn't mind that. And I got to go get new shoes because I wear out my shoes. But it's kind of fun having that reputation. It's kind of fun seeing that is part of who I am now. I've made it part of who I am. I used to be the fat, lazy guy. Now I'm the walking man. As I'm talking, I keep remembering these little stories. There was a guy that I used to live next to in the last house I lived in, and I would go for walks when I lived there, and he would see me in the rain, he'd see me in the snow, he'd see me whatever, and he started to call me, "Hey, there goes the postman, always out for his rounds, rain, snow, sleet, or hail, he's going to take his walk." And so that was my nickname in the neighborhood, was the postman. That's kind of fun. Yeah, so I changed my identity from the fat and lazy to the walking man, the postman, and now people recognize me because I'm active. They don't recognize me because I'm not active. They recognize me because I'm a go-getter and because I get out and I walk. It's part of who I am now. And it's the simplest thing. Just about anyone can walk. Just about anyone has 5 or 10 minutes to walk in a day, or an hour, or throughout the course of the day. It all adds up. It all adds up, and it's all good for you. To put this in a little bit of perspective, I have a pedometer. If you don't know what a pedometer is, it's a step tracker. I have it on my phone, and so it tracks all the steps that I take. And just to put it in perspective, I wrote it down right before I started recording. Over the course of the last year, I have walked 6,728,504 steps. That's an average of 19,673 steps per day. That is also 2,909.8 miles, or an average of 8.5 miles every single day. That is the average that I have taken over the course of the last 12 months. It's a lot. It's still one step at a time. It's one step at a time. It's simple. It's easy. But one step at a time, compounded over a year equals 6,728,504 steps, 2,909.8 miles. So if I can do that, you can do that. Put on music, put on a podcast, talk on the phone, whatever it is. Get out and put one foot in front of the other, and then do it a bunch of times. And then do it a bunch more times. Start tracking it. You're not going to improve, you don't improve things unless you can measure them and track them. So track your steps. Just about every phone has a tracker on it. And if it doesn't have one, you can download one easy and figure out what the average is over the course of a week. And then the next week, try to add 500 steps a day average. 500 steps takes about 5 minutes if you're walking at a reasonable pace. And there's tremendous health benefits. I can't remember what it is, but every 1,000 steps you take over, I think it is 6,000 steps a day, decreases your risk of heart disease by like 10% or something like that. And it actually improves your lifespan. You're getting outside, you're getting some nature, you're breathing in, you're getting some good thinking time, talking time. I know I'm rambling on now, but walking is one of my obsessions. So get out, walk it out, talk it out, and we'll talk to you later. So if you like this content, please give it a rating, a review, and share it with your friends. Also, if you'd like to learn a little bit more about me and what I'm all about and what I can maybe do for you, check out my website at thedangerousgentleman.org. That's thedangerousgentleman.org. Thank you for listening.